me. I'll start with the welcome in, welcome in. All right, here we go. You guys ready? Welcome in to the Bite Me podcast. We are here.
You know, I was tired of that damn song anyway. Like it got monotonous. It got tedious. It made it all of a sudden. I felt like I had to go to work or something.
You can't say anything bad about Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Your first time with a copyright infringement on YouTube.
Now YouTube can. First question out of the chute here on the Bite Me podcast for this December 14th of 2022. Any good lawyers out there? Any good attorneys out there? Scott, you were an officer. You're bound to know some good attorneys that can help us out here. For those just joining us for the first time, let me set it up and then I'll give you the story here. This is the Bite Me podcast. I'm John Lopez. That is Captain Scott Null across from me, and as well as Captain Caleb McCumber. We're going to get to a little run-in I had with him, and I get unfairly, unruly, unjustly attacked because of Caleb McCumber, but we'll get to that as well. This is the Bite Me podcast. Don't forget to join our Facebook group page, and if you do, you'll get alerts like I just did for a bunch of people that are already getting on the YouTube live channel of mine. You can join us as we're recording this live. We are live on YouTube. This will be recorded and posted on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. As always, I want to emphasize that you sign up and download the podcast. That's what is really best for us to be able to keep enhancing the podcast and the product and doing things like this YouTube live with brand new bells and whistles and brand new music and brand new software and all that stuff. So subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to, and if you're bored at work or if you're at home, wherever you are, you can take part in the YouTube live recording, which is going on right now here on Tuesday, the 13th. You can leave your comments. We'll get to some of your comments. Some are already coming in. And we have a really good show for you today. We're going to cover a lot of fishing stuff. But first things first, so Caleb, I was being as nice as I could. Like, I'm just minding my own business, Scott. I had one of my better days I've had in a while. I was catching a mess of fish. And then I see, a little black boat come by, and I see that there's a tower bent down in front. I said, well, that's got to be Caleb. And then I look some more, and I'm fishing, and I see the mannerisms of Caleb, which are very distinctive. And so I wave at him. Hey, man, how you doing? Didn't know you were out here. Of course, we're 400 yards away from him, 300, 400 yards away from him. He waves back. He comes up, sneaks in behind me, which is perfect, awesome. I want to chat it up, see what he's up to. Takes a picture. Hey, man, you mind if I put this up on Facebook? I said, sure, man. How you doing? Oh, man, I'm killing them today, Caleb. I mean, I'd tell you if I wasn't catching them. Absolutely killing them, okay? He goes, yeah, we've caught a few too. And I said, well, good. You want me to just drift? I was thinking about drifting right next to you. I said, sure, come on. More the merrier. But he ends up drifting about 150 yards away from me. I'm like, cool. Catch a nice redfish, take a picture with Caleb's boat in the back, just for fun. Next thing I know, I'm catching fish for a couple of hours. I said, well, let me check old Facebook here, see what's happening on the old Bite Me group page, which we encourage people to join, unless you're really, really mean like Caleb. And he proceeds to disparage my good name, claim that I cut him off with a reverse what, Caleb?
It was a reverse cutoff.
A reverse cutoff.
Reverse cutoff.
Post this.
That's whenever you're already where I want to be,
and
I pull up there and you're still down there.
And I'm telling you, he probably took 15 pictures. You know how guys are. But he posted a picture with my hat flapped straight up because of the wind, so I looked like Gilligan. I guarantee you had better pictures.
You look like Jed Clampett.
I did look like Jed Clampett. And then starts torching me in front of all our lovely listeners. So I thought that was really cheap and petty of you, Caleb. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, so
catfishing, catfishing is a thing, right? We're going to start calling this red fishing.
Yeah. Okay, so first off, let me address the comments you already have. They said, who's late? Franklin says, got to be Caleb. That's correct. I'm always late. That's how I do this. Franklin Lee said, I'd rather be fishing, but I'll settle on this. No, you wouldn't. It sucks out there right now. It's blowing like crazy. All right, so here's the mannerism of Caleb. I'm driving along, and I recognize John and his
floppy hat
boat over there. Here's a chance for you to plug your boat, John. I recognize.
I got
John
that
over
Freedom
there,
Warrior,
and his
that
Freedom Warrior
Warrior
looking
23.
majestic over there. It's clearly red, white, and blue in America, right? And I see a guy single by himself, and the mannerisms he saw was me pointing at the boat, telling my customer that's John Lopez, and I'm about to run right in front of him, and we're all going to moon him. And we ended up not doing that because I didn't want to wake out the area that I was fishing. And so I did. I came up behind you to see how you're doing, and John's like, "Oh, hey man, I've already caught 30 fish this morning," of which my customers already said he's lying. That's crap.
That's the truth. I always tell the truth on that. I take that very seriously.
Yeah, but man, I had the similar situation. Don't feel singled out, John. But whenever I told you I was going to post it and you said okay, I was like, I got you.
It's on now.
No, a couple of years ago,
between that and having a John boat donated to me by my wife's school and being claimed to have stolen it from children and leaving them in their tears, it's been a fun time.
I'll say this. I don't want to get way into it because it's a private matter, but John did something for a kid last week that completely wiped out the John boat deal. It was a huge deal. If his dad wants to post what happened, that's great. But John has been, he has regained faith in me as a man of caringness to children. He did a really awesome thing, and I'll just leave it at that.
I care about kids again.
He cares about kids. It was pretty stinking huge. It was awesome. But anyway, so I'm hanging out one day in this back lake, right? And I see my buddy. He comes up, and he's one of my tournament partners. I fished a lot of tournaments with him back then. And we were both kind of scouting for this tournament. So I'm like, I'm going to roll over there and see what old Robert's up to. And I get up beside him, and he like tosses me a beer, and we sit there like 30 minutes just messing around on our power poles, having a beer and hanging out. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take off. And he's like, all right, I'll see you. And I put out in front of him. And whenever I do that, he says, hey, man, why are you cutting me off? And I turned around and like threw my arms up like, what's up? Well, he was recording all of that. And he put that on Instagram and Facebook. And there were people like calling for my death. Like major tournament fishermen, like everybody's like, you need to find that guy. We're going to find him or kick his ass. This is like everything's wrong about it.
Meet him at the boat ramp.
He is, what's your boat ramp record, buddy? It was like, Robert had the world wanting to hunt me down and choke me out. So I feel like you caught on you got out all right.
It's okay. It's all in
I mean,
fun.
if you wouldn't wear that floppy hat, you wouldn't be like much of a target.
It normally doesn't flop, but the wind was really blowing. I always spray starch on the brim to keep it so I can be covered. I do. That's the
aggiest thing I've ever heard anybody say.
It works, except when the wind's directly in your face and you make me look like Gilligan.
There you guys.
I didn't really look at it close. Did you suck your gut in or not?
No, man. I was just standing there like in all my glory. I was like, what's going on? We're catching fish. Let's all have fun. Yeah, we're going to have fun. All right. This is Caleb was saying.
Here we are.
And I guarantee you, tell me I'm wrong. You had better pictures than that one. You absolutely had better pictures with the.
I had a couple where you looked pretty nice, but I didn't use them.
Why would you?
If you take a picture on an iPhone, it's got that live photo thing where you got about 30
you can
frames
stop
to
it.
choose from. Yeah, I went and found the best one.
So between that, the kids' boat, and forgetting to hit record, it's been fun. It's all right. Payback, as they say, can be biatch. By the way, there is something of a topic here about this, because one of the things you posted on, and this is something that Scott's going to weigh in on, I'm sure, that you posted on the Bite Me group page on Facebook, is the reverse alligator arm. Scott, he committed a cardinal sin. There is no question.
Here we
Scott,
go.
you saw the picture. You know what I'm talking about.
Picture.
He did the, his hand was like about half
that
the size
fish
of
was
the
so
screen.
big he made me look small.
No, that was
Yes.
a 19-inch redfish. That was a 19-inch redfish.
A 39-inch redfish, sir. I got video of it. My customer videoed me, and I was talking all kinds of trash. It took me like 10 minutes to get this thing in the boat. I'm talking all kinds of trash about you and everything, and and I elected not to post it because I'm a nice guy. That's it. So we were fishing. We were fishing when we saw you, and we were catching fish like steadily. And this fella's like, "Hey, I'd like to catch a bigger one." I was like, "All right." Well, I asked him. I said, "If you don't catch another fish today, do you feel like you had a good day and it's worth your time and your money?" He said, "Absolutely." I said, "All right. Well, we're gonna go down here." I said,
"You wanted to catch a redfish to show me up."
No, I said the fish are more scattered and in between, but the trout down here have been good ones. We caught. I had a 26 down there. There's been a handful of 28s, just good fish. And I went down there and we fished a while. And thunk, and I set the hook. I was like, "Man, this might be what we're looking for." And my drag went. Zzz, and I was like, "No, this ain't what we're looking for." Bud.
Yeah, you knew exactly what that was.
Oh man, he's a strong one.
So Scott, you saw the picture. That was very obvious what he did there, isn't it?
Yep. That's like the 8-foot rattlesnakes when people hold them way the hell out there.
I'm going to be honest with y'all. That
go
fish was so
viral.
heavy, I couldn't have held him out very far because, I mean, if y'all want to admit that I'm a big, strong man, you can do it, but I bet you're not going to.
Even my bum shoulder, I can hold a 20-inch fish straight out.
You know, the guy I had with me was the fella that fished with Scott the day before, and all he could talk about was how many more fish we caught.
Oh, wow. Now
right.
it's getting serious. Now it's getting serious.
He said actually the true story of it is he called me up. He called me up the night before. I said, "Hey, you want to go out in the Poland skiff? You want to go out in the big boat?" He said, "Man, that's up to you." I said, I fished with Scott today and we saw well over 100 fish. He said they were a little finicky, but we got some of them to eat. And I said, "You know what? That's better than you're going to see over here. Let's take the big boat." I'm not competing with that.
And he was being very conservative. I'd say we saw 150, 200 fish that day. I mean,
and right after that, I called Scott and told him that I'm fishing out of Port O'Connor next year and to make room for me at his place.
Exactly. No, that was a lot of fun. It absolutely was. By the way, texters here on the live stream on YouTube. Starch on the brim. I've never heard that one. Yes, but I've actually found another one. There's a hat brim straightener spray, hardener basically that they use for cowboy hats. You put it on your hat. I'm serious. It works. it works like a champ. Because I don't
for
like
both of y'all
cap.
that wear those hats on the bay. I mean,
they have to sell cover your whole neck. You gotta cover your whole neck.
They have to sell like
it's
2s and 2s of that stuff.
Say what?
I said I'm sure they sell like 2s and 2s of that stuff to both of y'all that go out on the bay in that hat.
Dude,
do you ride down the bay like?
Well, only when you took that picture. Only when you took that picture, it absolutely works.
Thanks. Right. Let me ask you another question. I had a guy this week. He held a trout up to me, right? Pretty good trout, probably weighed like 3 pounds. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Man, this thing swallowed the hook." I'm up on my tower. I don't really fish when I have customers. I'm just hanging out up on my tower talking to him. He holds his fish up to me. He said he grabbed it pretty deep. And I was like, "Oh, let me see." And I grabbed the bottom of the trout's lip, right? And I opened its mouth. Got a pretty good hold of it because I'm holding his mouth open, trying to look at the lure. This dude lets go of the fish.
Oh, no.
Like, my thumb is shredded right here. And I was like, "Dude, I wasn't trying to hold him." He's like, "Man, I thought you were being pretty tough trying to hold that fish by his lip." I was like, "I wasn't trying to hold the fish by his lip, but I appreciate you, man." He bought me a beer later to say he was sorry. And when I squeezed the lime into it, I was pissed all over again.
Y'all see that?
Does that say stiff and quick on it, John? Are
quick.
you great? Just because we said that, my Amazon and Facebook.
You're supposed to use it on a hat, but I'm sure it has multiple uses. I bought about 3 bottles of that over the last few years. It keeps the brim of the hat pretty darn stiff there. Pretty darn stiff. You can use it on whatever you want.
How many sandwiches can you get made out of a bottle of Stiff and Quick? Oh my! Like, what's the topic? Right. We got to have some topics.
This is going downhill fast.
Yeah.
That was a helpful hint. That was a helpful hint for people who wear hats like I do.
The little Viagra for hats.
Huh?
Viagra for hats.
Yeah. All right. Back to reality here and helping people catch fish. And so the first one that we got, I thought it was really, really good for both you guys. All right. It's from a listener, obviously, about reading Tide apps and knowing what they say. And I know we all use these a lot. I'll just read the question. Everyone probably knows the answer to this. except me. On the NOAA weather app, they list the current and predicted tides along with the MLLW. I don't know what that is. I have an idea, but maybe you could explain it in layman's terms. All right, Scott, I'll start it with you. The NOAA weather app, I'm guessing a lot of it has to do, with predicted tides and tides as they are, but can you explain that a little better?
Yeah, I mean, you see one line that shows the predicted tide, and then you'll see another line that's more of dots. If you blow it up, it's actually dots, and the tide gauge sends in the information every so often, and every time it sends it in, there's a little dot that corresponds to it. That tells you how much higher or lower than the predicted tide. MLLW, I went ahead and looked it up so I wouldn't screw it up, but it's mean lower low water. The average of the lower low water height of each tidal day observed over the national tide datum for stations with shorter series comparisons, simultaneous observations with a controlled tide station is made in order to derive the equivalent datum of the national.
It doesn't make any less.
Basically,
Right.
No, basically, I don't really know exactly what that means.
It means
but
nothing
you see it all the
fishermen.
time. Yeah, they used to have a third line. There was a green line on that tide chart, and that would show you the actual amount that it was varied. You know, was it varying by 6 inches or a foot? And that would show that. It wasn't that hard to look at the two lines and do the math and kind of figure out exactly how much it was. So I guess they finally did away with that one. But it was just a little more.
So let's put it in layman's terms, as he said. What are you looking for, both you guys? Like okay, I need to see what the tide is doing on this day. I think it's important. Like layman's terms, Caleb, put it with you first. What are you looking at to help our guy out?
I'm looking at what it's telling me. I couldn't care less what the blue line is. The blue line is predicted, and the situations I found myself in this week, I couldn't care less what they predict because their predictions are garbage. The red line, that's telling me where it's at. Is it a foot above normal, 6 inches above normal? To really put it into play, you have to pay attention to what it is while you're out there and seeing things, right? So I know there's certain back lakes I can get in, and it's going to be kind of sketchy at 6 inches above normal, right? In my big boat, I know that I need 10 inches above normal, stuff like that. And so that's what I'm really looking at. I'm looking at what are the actuals right now? Is it dipping below average? Is it above? The MLLW, I looked it up too, and it's also an energy and natural sparkling drink. And that makes more sense to me than whatever the hell Scott just said. I don't know what any of that means. I feel like the mean lower low water would be like for tankers, where they can look at it and say this is as low as it possibly going to get today or something. I don't know. That means nothing.
The mean is basically the average.
Yeah, the average lower low water. So I guess like on I don't know. It sounds like somebody that doesn't have anything else to worry about made up something. I don't know.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It basically what we mean is it doesn't pertain to what we do.
Nothing.
Right. So layman's terms from you, Scott. Yeah,
I look at those two, and it gives me an idea of the trend. Is the water trending to be higher than it's supposed to be, or is it trending to be lower than it's supposed to be? Most of the time I know that based off the wind. This week, it wasn't so much based off the wind. It didn't seem like we had some damn low tides that, just kept falling and falling and falling all day. But that was a full moon thing. You're going to have bigger tides on a full moon and a dark moon. So watching it fall all day long was a little concerning where I went into a couple of my very, very back lakes, and I could see the little drains off to the sides were looking like little waterfalls. So it was showing me that it was falling so fast that the little lakes off to the sides weren't keeping up, and they were still trying to fall out. So I didn't go as far back into some of my normal places as I would, because I didn't want to have to call Caleb's airboat service.
I got a lot of numbers now. If anybody gets into trouble, I got numbers for you.
Now, here's the other thing. I like, and I know you guys do this, so I'm just mentioning it so y'all can talk about it. I like to kind of cross-reference what I'm seeing with what I'm seeing on the bulkhead or the ramp, or where, somewhere where I can see, okay, so on this app it says, let's say -6, Caleb, or whatever, or 0.6, whatever. And then when I get to the ramp, I'm like, okay, so that's where it is. So sometimes you can just eyeball it that way, and and Scott, I know you've said this in the past, I can't go here, here, or here today, but I can go here, here, and here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it changes my day if I pull up to the ramp and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Yeah, I can look at the dock there at the fishing center or Charlie's, either one, and know exactly where I need to be. I used to fish out of Louis Bait Camp in Galveston, and the railroad bridge was my signal. Yeah, you cross. Everybody that goes up and down Highland Bayou knows you got to get under the railroad bridge, and there were days when it was pretty damn tight getting underneath there, and then there was other days you could jump up and down and couldn't touch it. But that was always my signal as to it would change my plan on some days. Yeah, I'd hit that railroad bridge and I'm pushing it, trying to get underneath there, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that rules out X and X and X and X. You've got a map in your head, and the depths of different places and what works over time. And being able to look at something like that railroad bridge or the dock at Fishing Center, and it immediately cuts out half of my areas. Yeah,
But
and then puts me into a mode of going to these others.
But don't completely trust it, because you can cross a river, you can run up into a back lake, and just because it's low or high out there, there's been plenty of times whenever it's completely different. When you get, I've left Matagorda Harbor before when the tide was a foot high, and got to a back lake that's 6 miles away, and that sucker's drained. But it's a good way to start and base your day. But you still want to pay attention to your visuals. Don't look at something and say, man, it looks kind of low, but the tide chart says it's up a foot, because it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, I look at a whole bunch of oyster reefs. I had 24 different points of reference out there on the bay as I went to wherever I was trying to go that would tell me, for whatever reason, this back lake is drained. I made it around the corner, and the oyster reef off that point is sticking out of the water. I might not want to go in there. Something's up. Something's different.
And I don't mean to sound like Caleb here, but the water was out when I got back. I guess it was Saturday. The water was out pretty good, and I went to my usual, kind of entry point there near a drain, and I kind of just said, you know what? Let's see. I haven't tried this boat when the water's this far out before, and I just kind of, not full bore, but was on plane, slow, just to make sure I could still navigate down there. Trial and error, man. You got to roll the dice a little bit, but you also have to see what I can and can't get in. It's trial and error, 100%.
Yeah, you go fast. You go further if you go far. That slow thing.
I don't like to go as fast as you do.
You're gonna get stuck. You're either gonna get stuck or you aren't. No reason to go out like a girl. Hey, Chris Collins says howdy, and so does Harrison Lee.
He sure does. Now let's get to Chris. Let's go through some of those comments of our listeners here on the YouTube live channel.
Okay, let me start first. This guy's laughing about starch on the brim.
It works.
I read the one I want to read. Now
stiff
you go
and
ahead.
quick. Stiff and quick.
Stiff and quick
is the spray you need, Caleb. And ask your wife.
I'm getting some for Christmas. I know what stocking
stuffer Say, honey, can you get me some stiff and quick spray for Christmas? And she'll say, all right. She goes.
I had a guy that got in the boat the other day, and he's about my age, and this guy's like shredded. And he was telling me about all the benefits of taking testosterone shots, and I said something to my wife, and it was a hard no on whether I get those or not.
Now, Scott, Caleb did bring up a really good point when we're out there fishing. I do have to give him credit on this occasionally anyway.
So he got one right.
He got one right because I was out there and I'd been, as I mentioned, and this isn't, I was doing fine. I'm not going to, catch the wrath of Caleb because I was actually catching a lot of fish.
I'm just saying, if I long-armed that fish, you didn't catch 30 fish. I'm just saying.
I caught at least 30. Anywho, but as I was winding up when he got there, I said, yeah, I'm about to wrap it up, maybe go try something else or whatever I was going to do. I think the miner's just about over. And he said, Caleb, actually, I'll start with you. because you said, oh, no, this is a full moon minor. They'll keep biting for a while. And it was well after what the minor, air quote, time range was for East Matagorda Bay. So why did you say that, and why does it matter on a full moon?
Well, it really didn't have anything to do with the minor. I think your hat was flopping and you didn't hear me quite correctly. Pop, 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 pop. You didn't use enough stiff and quick on the sides.
I do.
But no, what I was talking about was because we had caught. I mean, both of us had caught fish that morning, and my guys, and they were kind of like, well, maybe it's gonna start slowing down. But on a full moon bite, typically you have an early morning bite, then it slows down a little bit, and then from there's a window from like 10:30 to 2:30 when at some point it usually picks up pretty good. And whenever I saw you, we were on a solid full moon.
Yeah.
And most of my really consistent catching, because I mean we were catching a fish like every 3 or 4 casts for a good clip through there. And it's somewhere between 10:30 and 2:30. It's just a midday bite that comes off of that full moon. And that plays through the summertime, the wintertime, anything. They feed good at night. They'll be feeding pretty good at daylight. You said you got there like 5 a.m. and caught fish early. I got up at 7:30 and went fishing because I'm fishing that midday to mid-afternoon bite, right?
Yeah.
But that's just a typical rule of thumb. It doesn't always work as with anything fishing, but with that full moon, mid-morning to mid-afternoon is usually pretty solid.
What are your thoughts on that, Scott?
Always.
Man.
Well, apparently Macy agrees.
Yeah.
But the midday is always a good thing when you got a full moon. It works for deer hunting. It works for everything. The cows will be up eating in the middle of the day too. So it makes sense. The mornings can be pretty good. Like you hit right at daylight, and for the first hour or two. Typically, when I had it the other day, it was a day after a full moon, I think, and the fish were turned on pretty good for the first couple hours. But if you looked over to the west, the moon was just setting, and on a setting moon, that's when you have your minor. But then there's almost always on a full moon and the few days after a full moon, there's he said 10 to 2. I'm a little narrower on that, about 11 to 1. But somewhere in there you're gonna pick up a decent one.
Yeah, I mean, and he was right. I was like, it's been so long since I've caught this many fish. I'm just gonna enjoy it, and that's that. So I hanged around for a while, and sure enough, it was really, really good. So you got one that right there, Caleb. There's no question about that. I wanted to ask you now, just in general on minors and majors. Scott, I'll start with you because this is how the question started. Minors and majors after a full moon. He was talking more full moon, but minors and majors. Is there any time where you prefer one over the other? I know we were talking to Patrick last week, and he talked about the minors a little bit. But Scott, is it just hit them when you can, or do you prefer one over the other at a particular time of year?
I've seen it work, and I've seen it just fall on its face. I mean, all conditions equal. I would guess that a major could produce a little more, and I've seen it. I think more for the mature fish. The bigger fish seem to be more affected by it. If that makes sense. The juveniles, you can seem like you can catch them pretty much any time of the day. The bigger fish, it seems like it comes into play a little bit more. Redfish, I mean, I've seen it, like I said, I've seen it just dead on where you could set your watch by it and go, okay, the major's coming up, and then it just goes away. Caleb keeps writing us notes.
I'm talking to the people. I'm talking to the people on the chat, so I don't get in trouble.
Well, you see, Chris Cullen talking dropped us a note that I posted on there. It seems the bite is better at the beginning and ending of the minor and majors. What do you think? 100%, right, Scott? Always. For me, anyway.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, at the very end.
Yeah, I went for years where I wouldn't even look at it because I knew I was going to be out there fishing anyway. And I didn't want it to affect my my mental status, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
of man, I'm between a major and a minor right now, and I got to be out here. This is, you know, this sucks. Well,
Yeah.
if you got a negative attitude, you're going to have a negative box of fish. So
Mm-hmm.
I for years and years, I didn't even pay attention to it. I wouldn't even look at it. Everett
Mhm.
Johnson with Texas Saltwater Fishing Magazine lives by it, and I fished with him quite a few times. Where I mean, he'd say, "Okay, let's go eat a sandwich," and he'd go back to the boat and fix a big old sandwich. That guy brings a feast with him. It's pretty impressive. But
Well, let me tell you
go
guys
back
this.
and
Go
eat
ahead,
that.
finish, Scott.
And
Yeah.
then we, you know, he said, "Okay, get back in the water, boys." It was me and him and Dean Thomas and Ruben Garza one time, and we caught some fish at daylight, and then we had a long lull, and he said, "Okay, we're going to move. The trout are going to bite at 11:15." And we went over to the spot and we waited out. It was cold, and Dean doesn't like cold, you know that. And we waited out there, and we're standing belly deep, and it was South Pass, and we're hanging out there. And Dean finally looks at me and goes, "This is stupid." You know, typical Dean. "This is stupid." He said, "I'm going back to the boat where the sandwiches are," and he starts wading back to the boat. And EJ leans over. He hollers over. He says, hang on, it's fixing to happen. It's 11:10. It's fixing to happen." And I'll be damned if I didn't get bumped. Just a little,
Really?
you know, a little light bump, and then another little light bump. And I look over, and EJ's hooked up. Ruben's hooked up. I holler at Dean, who's halfway back to the boat now. Say, "Get
To
back
get your
over here. It's
sandwich.
turning on." And Dean
Mhm.
says, "Nope." He just kept walking for a minute. And finally, he turns around. He sees all three of us bowed up. And
Mhm.
he's like, "All right," you know, and grumbles and went back out there. Everett said, "You better get on it good. This is a minor, and it's not going to last long." And he was right. It was about 45 minutes to an hour, and we were done. And
Well,
they cut off
go-
just as fast as they started.
See, that's my point, Caleb. The reason I rely on the minors and the start of the minor and end of the minor and start of the major and end of the major. For me, it's not like confidence. I'm going to fish anyway, and I'm going to throw my confidence baits, and I'm going to think that I'm going to catch fish because I just try to always think that way. But what I do always make sure of in those moments is that I'm not moving. That's my thing, Caleb. But like if I'll look at the time, and I already know in my mind, okay, well, the minors, like this last Saturday when I saw you, the minor was supposed to start about 8 and about 9:30, 10. Well, I was catching fish before 8, and I was catching fish after 9:30 or 10. But I'll be dog if I'm going to be moving during that time. That's what I really focus it on. I want to make sure I'm not, driving somewhere and wasting that time.
Well, I think right now we're in the time of year right now where you don't need as many things coming together to get them to eat. The water feels good, they feel good. There's bait, so forth and so on, right? And whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I like what you said. I said to my customer the other day. He said, "What about majors and minors?" I said, "I'm out here anyway. I couldn't care less." But there's some big trout guys that will sit at the dock until 10 a.m. because the major, the minors at 11, and they'll roll and be where they want to be. But the fact of the matter is they know where fish are staged. And
Yes.
we've said it a million times on this podcast. You're hedging your bets, right? So we're just trying to, stack one Lego on top of the other and give ourselves the best shot. And if you're putting on your stupid pants and going to stand out there, if you can figure out how to stand there for the shortest amount of time possible to try to get the maximum results, maybe that's the way to do it. That being said, I don't prescribe a whole lot to majors and minors, especially with red fishing. But a lot of my big fish, I don't know. I've got a wad over 30 at this point. Don't have anything over 10. Still trying to do that. Not trying as hard as I used to. But most of them came before or after a minor. We caught fish all through the minor. They were smaller fish that were kind of a little bit more in a frenzy, but a little bit before, a little bit after is where most of those fish came from. And I think it has a lot to do with the smaller fish did go off during the minor, and the bigger fish didn't want to compete with them. But that being said, I don't look at it a whole lot. This past week, I've been able to see the moon in the sky. I can look at it. The moon's overhead. Maybe our bite's going to pick up. The moon's setting. The moon's rising. Maybe our bite's going to pick up. If I'm somewhere and I think it's really fishy and there's a minor or major coming, it'll make me stay there longer and fish through it a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah, that's what I'm
But
talking about.
there's a lot. I mean, there's people on both sides of the argument. There's people listening to it right now that are going, this guy's a moron. He should be out there fishing this and that. There's people out there saying this guy, that's exactly how I feel about it. And it correlates back to this. Say somebody gives you just the stupidest lure you've ever seen. Say it's a mirror lure, Little John. It looks like a little rubber cone. This lure sucks, right? And you go out and you throw it and you catch a bunch of fish, and all of a sudden, man, this lure is awesome. This is how it works. This lure is great. Same way with the major and a minor. You go out and you fish the major or minor and have a good time with it. You're going to be a diehard major and minor believer. If you're out there all the time and they're just going to turn on and they're going to turn off, then you're not a major or minor believer. I've seen a little bit of both. Good
comment here that I'm showing you guys from Franklin
and he's
Lee
right.
in Louisiana. And this is why I love the YouTube channel. This is why I always want you guys to subscribe to the podcast, because it helps so many listeners who are driving on their commutes or whatever, or to the boat ramp. But we also have the YouTube live channel going on Tuesdays, because I think we're talking about advancing the conversation. I'm always telling Scott and Caleb this: whatever can add a level to the conversation is kind of how I'm wired. And Franklin brought up a good point.
Yeah,
you have.
Have you, Scott? Have you ever heard him say that?
Yeah, you have. Like I even texted it to you. I'll send you the text. So what he's saying there, Scott, I want you to talk about a little bit, and then Caleb, I guess, if he has to. But he's talking about the tidal movement in South Louisiana is a bigger influence than Solunar. That's something to consider, as well as down south. Dean, listens to us and participates in this podcast. He's probably talking, if he's watching right now or listening right now, no, the wind is more important for us down here. So it depends on where you are, right?
Water movement. I'll take water movement over the Solunar any day. If I've got tide movement, whether it be from wind or the natural tides rising and falling, give me a falling tide, give me a wind blowing water across a point, around a corner, anything along those lines that moves water, give me that over the major, and I'll take it. Now you give me the major with the falling tide in the right situation, I'll take that too. But if I got a dead tide, I ain't catching anything on a major. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Franklin and Lowry are both dead right about it. It's water movement. So that's where y'all had Pat on last week, and that's where you'll see him get super excited. If he's fishing somewhere where an incoming tide sets the bite off, and then he has a major that correlates with that tide starting to come in, then he'll get really excited and pumped up about it. And that's spot on. A major can be all at once, but if there's nothing bringing them food or getting them fired up, then it's just the moon's up there. Big deal. Power.
All right, Caleb, we're going to find out if you did your homework. How were you at homework in school?
Terrible.
You have to ask.
I can't even get Cade's homework, much less my own.
That's the worst when they ask you to help them.
Like, my kid. Can I take a sidetrack real quick?
Yes,
my kid. I'm sitting out there fishing the other day. My phone goes off. Your child has received a discipline at Needville Elementary. I'm like,
great.
I'm gonna
sure
get you now. I picked him up from school. I was like, how was your day today, son? He's like, oh, it was a normal day. And I was like, oh, really? Normal day, huh? He's like, yeah, normal day. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play it cool. So I get home and I'm going to bust him right in front of his mom, right? And I was like, hey, Kate, how was your day at school today? And he was like, it was normal. I was like, oh, yeah? You got a discipline today, didn't you? He's like, yeah, I was tardy. And then my wife looks at me and goes, yeah, that's normal. Like, all right.
Oh, okay.
I'm going back to Matagorda. I'm done.
Normal for him is normal for you, basically.
Yeah.
So did you do your homework? I sent you this morning about 6 a.m. And then I mentioned it again on our private chat.
And we start recording at 3:30, so he saw that about 3:25.
So the homework assignment was, Caleb, do you want to show how to tie a loop knot for the video audience as you're talking?
Son of a gun. That says that in capital letters, don't it?
Yes, it does. So do you have something for our video?
Stand by.
And I'll talk about it for our podcast listeners.
I'm gonna need you to buy me some time.
I'm going to talk to Scott for a second. Go ahead. So Scott, it says, what knot for what lure? In other words, what other artificial baits do you tie a loop knot on besides topwaters? What about corkies, floaters, slow sinkers? Although I think I typed stinkers on that.
Yes, you did.
Slow stinkers. What about stick baits? I'm just curious, as I only tie a loop on topwater baits. So before Caleb shows us and gives us his answer, what other baits do you tie a loop knot on?
Pretty much any of them. I won't do it on the soft plastics I use. It really doesn't matter a whole lot on that. All the movements on the tail, but any lure that you want to increase the movement of, I think it helps a little bit. I'd like to see a study on that. Let's have a study. But the theory is that it allows more hinging of the lure. It moves better. The stiffer your leader, if you put quick and stiff on it, then then you should probably tie a loop knot on there.
I guarantee everybody wearing a bucket hat, we should be getting an endorsement from Stiff and Quick, man. Because
you're talking to one other person.
Yeah,
You're talking to one other guy, and he's probably an Aggie.
But now anything that you want more movement out of, top water, hell, he listed all of them right there. Corkies, top waters, slow sinkers or stinkers or whatever they are, and stick baits. Anything that you want some more movement out of. I do it on flies. Quite often we'll tie a fly up like that. And there's somebody asking any loss of performance on loop knot versus split ring. Yes. Split ring has some weight to it. It can affect a top water negatively. It just throws the balance off a little bit. Anything you do that puts more weight on it, it changes your lure movement.
Yeah, that was Marcus asked that question. That's why I posted it up there. But yes,
it's better to go ahead and learn how to tie a loop knot. They're simple,
all right,
and they're plenty strong. I mean, I've heard that in the past from somebody. They were like, "Oh yeah, it's not as strong, so I don't like to use it." Hell, I've tested them. I've sat there and done the pull test on them, and they hold up just fine.
All right, Caleb, perfect transition for everybody up there.
I don't know if this is going to focus.
You can't see it. You don't have like a big rope or anything. All right, well, you know what?
Oh, you want a big rope? I got a big rope.
Yeah,
a great big rope.
Yeah, like a big rope to be able to show how it is. And
he's sitting in a black room with very little lighting, and he decides to use a piece of fishing line to show something. Stand back, folks. We are professionals on here.
Only Caleb. What are the advantages, Scott, while he's doing that, of just like you tie your regular knot versus a loop knot? How much performance do you feel like you lose on that as opposed to a split ring?
Oh, as far as a split ring, I wouldn't use a split ring.
Like tying a regular knot versus a loop knot.
Tying a regular knot versus a loop knot.
Yeah,
like I said, it depends on how stiff the leader is. If I'm, a lot of times on tarpon fishing, we're using 60 or 80 pound leader, even fly fishing. Yeah. If I tie it directly to that lure and it sits just a little cockeyed on that knot, when it cinches down, that lure is going to ride crooked. If I tie it on a loop knot, then it's free flowing. It allows it to ride correctly. Same thing could happen with a regular lure, I suppose, but you have a little more weight there, so it will typically pull itself straight.
Right.
But yeah, there's more of a hinge movement. It's just more freedom of it to move around. And speaking of moving around, Caleb's all over the place.
Caleb he's feeling so much pressure right now. Meanwhile,
I'm ready.
We were just talking about down in Aransas Pass says. Dean says, I use the shoestring knot like my mama taught me. So I guess whatever works. All right, Caleb, the pressure is on.
The pressure.
Scott and I can talk people through. Actually, you talk people through it for the audio audience, and the video audience will see if you want to tie a perfect, easy loop knot. Do this. Talk us through it, Caleb.
And I'm going to go ahead and throw this out here. A loop knot, if you want to throw a leader, it's great. But with the braid they have now, if you're throwing 20 or 30 pound, it's so soft that it does what it's supposed to. I get a lot of customers on the boat. I had a lot this week when I waited. I made a good use of my waders this week. and used them a lot. And whenever I wasn't using a leader, they're like, no loop knot. Like, no, man, this stuff's floppy and soft. It doesn't need a loop knot, right? But
So you
quick and
go
easy
straight
one.
onto that. Okay.
Look at this line I got. Bam, bam.
Okay, that's perfect.
All right,
Neon.
look, you got the end of your
So
leader
talk us
right
through
here.
it for our audio audience. Talk us through it.
How about I do it and you figure out what I'm doing and talk about it?
Scott, you do it.
All right. Now, what a cop out right there. All right, so you got the end
Yes,
of
it
your leader,
was.
right? All you do is roll it over and make a loop, okay? And then you go under it once. It's just like you're tying your shoes, like your mama taught you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's simple. Take your lure. Also, could be as a hook that you hang your stuff on, your line on, whatever. So that's your
Go
lure,
through the
right?
eye.
Goes through the eye of it. Now, when you went over, you came through and came out one side of your loop. So this time you're going to go back in the other side of your loop. Make sense? Are we with it?
Yep.
All you do is go through that loop, and then you go over it once, and you go over it 2 times. Okay? And then when it pulls down, it rolls up and gets all crazy looking, and it works great. It's awesome. It's hard to tie with this crap,
No,
John.
well, yeah, you did it. You did it good. And by the way, it's a good
But
moment to
you just make a loop, go over it, go through your lure, come back, go over it 3 times, 2 times, whatever you want to do. Pull it tight.
quick and easy.
I've got videos about it on YouTube. It's
I
much
was just
better
going to
done.
say it's a good time to mention.
Well, you're going to
Captain
confuse
Caleb
folks
TV.
now because you cinched that one.
Yeah, because you what?
Control your
sense
dog,
that.
Scott. We're
Good
trying to be
Lord.
professional.
I think the UPS guy is here.
Okay.
They love the UPS guy. He feeds them treats.
Oh,
So,
nice.
Anyway, he cinches it down, and then you take that tag in and you do an overhand knot over your running line. No, and you let it ride back up.
It goes over, goes through it 2 or 3 times. Bite it with your teeth, and you pull it down.
Okay.
It all rolls up. It's clean.
Okay. There's another one that you do the same basic thing, and then you tie an overhand knot up the line just a little bit, however big you want your loop to be, and it slides back up to it.
So this one's kind of funny, and you have to play with it and figure it out. The way I do it, I bite the tag in with my teeth, and I grab above it with my fingernail and then my skin, and I pull it all the way to the lure, and then whenever you cinch it, it rolls up and comes out.
Yeah.
But if you slide it all the way to the lure before you do it, it gives it a little bit of slack right when it cinches up, and it'll make the tiniest little cleanest loop knot. If you leave the loop in it and then pull it out, it's gonna be a long loop knot.
Yeah. Well,
Go to Captain Caleb TV.
We have confused Dean. That's not hard to do. I've confused Dean many, many times. It's just a shame he wasn't here just a little earlier when I was talking about him wading in cold water.
Yeah,
We were talking
missed
about
that.
him. Maybe he was. We got to get. We'll get Dean on next week's podcast if he has time. It's been a while, and I know he's generally off the water, so we'll get Dean on hopefully next week, if not maybe Christmas week. We do want to talk about just a generic fun fishing question that we got from one of our listeners. So we'll get to that in just a second. All right, here we go. I like these types of topics as well because I just love to see the answers. And Dean, if you're still listening, you can text us what your answer would be. If this is from a listener, if you had to fish only one bait system for a trophy trout and one bait system for a hog tournament redfish stringer, what would they be? Go ahead, Scott.
Just reading comments. That's gonna be the bad thing for me on this.
Remember, I told
wasn't
you
paying any attention to what you
only
were.
if they see. You do remember me saying this, right? I said only if they advance the conversation, because there's a lot of smart Alex on our group
This guy
page.
just unlearned how to tie a knot.
Here, I'll put it up there for.
I'm not
for
in that
class.
screen right now, but ban him.
Caleb, after watching you demonstrate in the dark, I think
Listen,
I just unlearned.
Whenever
how
I
to
made
tie a
this
loop
video,
knot.
I used $5,000 worth of cameras. This one, you're like, hey, get a shoestring and use a webcam. All right.
All right. So you got to you have to catch one trophy trout, Scott, and one redfish stringer. Where are you going?
It was funny. I happened to be on the phone with Mark Nichols from DOA Lures, and we were talking about this very thing, just chatting about it the other day, or actually this afternoon, and we both kind of agreed on that. I might go to land cut. Mark was dead on with it. He wanted to be on either end of the land cut, where you have the little drains that come off those huge flats and catch a falling tide and sit right there and work it. That makes a lot of sense. Down there on the south end by Gladys Hole, somewhere around in there, places that don't see a whole lot of traffic. That's where I would probably tend to want to go to. Anywhere up and down along the intercoastal that has big flats, big shallow water flats next to deeper water, which along the intercoastal on the south end is, we just lost. We lost Caleb's interest.
Caleb. He's one of a kind.
He checked out.
He is one of a kind. I think he's checking back in.
Yeah.
Good Lord Almighty.
Anywhere along the way.
I wasn't supposed to click that button, huh?
I guess not. So anyway, finish, Scott. Then we'll ask Caleb.
Any place like that matches those criteria, but I would probably tend to stick more to the southern end of the state. From Baffin on down south. They catch a lot of really big trout down there at South Padre, at Port Isabel area, that don't get talked about a whole lot. I know some guys that do it on a regular basis down there. I kind of like that down there because the growing season's a little longer. I think the fish tend to get a little bigger. They get, they have more feeding opportunities. The water stays a little warmer down there, and they don't sulk as much as they do on the upper coast. West Galveston Bay used to be known. I mean, it was big trout central for a lot of years, but that seems to have fallen off. So I know there's somebody out there going, I know where the big trout are, but it used to be a whole lot more common.
It is funny.
We fished up that way.
Like even guides, they'll help each other. Like guys that are real tight, like you and Patrick and you and Scott, Caleb, you'll tell them everything. But when it comes to big trout, that's the one thing that unless you're like blood brothers, that you just don't say very often. But so let me ask you the same thing, Caleb. You gotta catch one trophy trout and you gotta catch one redfish stringer monsters, right under 27 3/4 basically in Texas, and fat. Where are you going?
Wherever Chris Bush tells me for trout, and somewhere in Texas and Delacroix for reds. That's what Franklin Lee said. And it's
okay.
Pretty accurate. To be honest, Pat will help me with trout. We had a conversation the other day. I was fishing an area.
That's what I'm saying. But y'all are blood brothers.
Pat says, put on a gringo. I'm like, I don't have one. He said, all right, put on a pearl and chartreuse. Like, yep, don't have that either. He said, okay, try a hot cotton. Nope, don't have it. He said, what do you have? I was like, I've got a red shad one. He's like, that all you have? Yep. That's what I have today. Which is funny enough. The next morning I was waiting, and Pat and Nick and some people had waited that night before, and I found a gringo that I think Pat threw off. I threw that, and it turns out it works pretty good. Before the freeze, I would have went to East Matagorda Bay. East Matagorda was just kicking butt up and down the coast. After the freeze, probably going to hang out in Baffin. That's probably where I'm at. I've got friends that have been down there fishing, and they've been doing pretty good. It's hard to gauge right now because the water was 51 last month, and Marsh Mice Miller, ain't nobody trying to talk about going catch no big trout in West Galveston Bay, dude. You're safe. I promise. The water was in the 50s last month, and it was 74, 75 the other day. So like they're thrown off, they're confused. But if I had to go right now and go catch a big trout, it'd be somewhere between Corpus and Port Mansfield, most likely. But Baffin's where I'd be hanging out at. Redfish, Louisiana, bar none. I would say Texas right now this time of year, but it hasn't been a good year for redfish. We got that 10 inches of rain around Thanksgiving. It's thrown off around here. It's not that great. It's not the year that I'm used to. Oh, and the guy that said he unlearned how to tie a loop knot, that's Larry Higgins from K Wiggler. And I was going to say something nice about catching fish on K Wiggler this week, but I'm not now. I'm not going to talk about catching fish on K Wiggler with the Truth color.
That's kind of spiteful right there.
Yeah, Chris Bush had a color called the Truth, and we caught some fish on it, but I'm not going to talk about it now because Larry's just being a jerk.
This whole comment thing is really going to throw us off
as well. Again, guys, listen to your humble host, okay? Yeah. If it advances the conversation, it's trial and error.
I don't know about y'all, but I love this.
I know you do. You're like Mr. Squirrel. Squirrel. Franklin Marsh.
But see, here's the thing. People that just want to be all lazy about it and listen to it while they're driving to work, they're going to figure out that they're going to have to get into these comments to figure out the little morsels, the little Easter eggs, as the video game nerds call it.
Yes.
There's Easter eggs.
But subscribe for all our humble partners like Kelly and friends like Kelly Wiggler and Knock and Tail and Wade Wright and obviously Laguna. And by the way, it's Christmas. Let's talk. Let's do what we did last year. All right, Scott. This is something that we did last year and it went over very well because all the stuff that we use, and this is not on the rundown, but I know you guys can do it right off the top of your head. What we're thankful for in terms of like the people who have supported this podcast and keep us fishing and keep you guys in business and certainly help people catch more fish with their great products. These are unpaid for the most part. Full clarity here, but Scott, who are the ones that you absolutely want to give a hat tip to, so to speak?
Oh man, I got so many, but AFCO keeps me in good clothing. Dean does the same. Dean wears all the AFCO stuff. The stuff just holds up. We are having that conversation this week at Fish Tackle Unlimited, as a matter of fact. Yeah, just how well made all that stuff is. I mean, I wear it a lot, and it gets washed a lot, and it still holds up completely. Fish and Tackle Unlimited, yeah, I can't say enough good about those folks. They take good care of me. Their house rod, you throw it. Love it. G2 is awesome. They've got the new G2 spinning rod fixing to come out. Probably be here around the fishing show, somewhere around there. It's I believe it's on its way, from what I understand. I can't wait to get those on the boat and get them in hands of some customers. But that's my main ones. Of course, DOA, they take awesome care of us. How many lures do you need, Scott? How many lures do you need, Caleb? And take really good care of us on that. Mirror Lure does the same. If I run out of my mirror lures, my man Mike, I talked to him at Fish and Tackle Unlimited this weekend as well, and he said, "Man, you hadn't ordered anything in a while." I said, "Well, really hadn't lost a whole lot this year. Good. Didn't run into a bunch of sharks like I did last year." You see us wearing Costa. Got my Costa hat on today. As a matter of fact, they just sent me a new hat. All the things that keep us on the water. Sabine skiffs, Freedom boats. Man, there's just so many little things that we use day in and day out. I've got a lot of Sims gear. I've got all kind of AFCO stuff. I don't want to sound like a commercial, but
no, I mean, look,
it's things it's things that I've learned over the years work.
Yeah.
And I'm supported by a lot of these companies, and a lot of people say, "Oh man, it's just because they give you stuff." No, I was buying this stuff. I've been buying Costas for almost 35 years, give or take. I've been throwing Shimano forever. I bought plenty of Shimano, believe me, tons of Shimano, and now they take good care of me, and their stuff just works. I don't want things on my boat just because somebody gave it to me. I want things on my boat that work.
And just like me, you're in a different way. You're on the water, and now you're obviously on the podcast as well. But your reputation is at stake. Out on that water with all the gear, and that's why. By the way, very happy to say I just got an email today, so this will help keep the podcast going from Lauren and Emily over at Fishing Tackle Unlimited. So for 2023, Scott, they are officially the presenting sponsor of this podcast again. For next year. And I mentioned Knock and Tail and Wade Wright. Those guys have been great to me. I've been using their stuff forever. It's and by the way, Knock and Tail at mycoastoutdoors.com. Bite me 30 for the holidays. Not bite me 20, bite me 30 during the holidays. 30% off. Bite me 20 at coastalfishinggear.com for the Bite Me combo. And I think they're throwing in a hat and a koozie during the holidays. So they're taking care, and they posted it on the Bite Me group page as well. So those fine folks over there. Caleb, I know you clearly you go through a lot, you fish hard, and you got some thank yous and some tips for our listeners of the gear that you use.
And what people have to understand with Scott and I both, we get when I get home from fishing, I've just been gone 2 or 3 weeks fishing. When I get home, there's a stack of stuff in my office, in my studio, and it's stuff that people sent. Hey, try this out. If you talk about this one, we'll take it for free. Talk about it on your podcast. And we don't do that. If I use something for a solid year and I really like it, that's what it takes for me to push it to anybody else. And Scott's the same way. It has nothing to do with getting it for free. A lot of it we paid for. But Grundens, man, is that stuff. I got caught in thunderstorms yesterday, day before yesterday. The forecast was not correct. That stuff, man, it keeps me comfortable, keeps me dry. You can buy it at Anglers Anonymous. You can buy it at FTU. Anglers just ordered the exact stuff I wear, which is the Gambler jacket and Gambler bibs. Love that stuff. It's great. It fits me really, really light and comfortable, but I've tested it. It does great. Scott's pretty well hit the other things that I really use, Shimano, Costa, DOA. I've been throwing, I haven't been throwing K-Wigglers, and I haven't been catching good trout on them all week because Larry was being a jerk earlier.
I'll give you an example to add on to your point there, Caleb. Bow Shield T9, they are in Michigan, and it's a lubricant that I swear by. And we get, I get inquiries as well. Hey, can you mention this on the podcast? And it's just like you said, we have to know if we like it, if we use it, if it can help people catch fish. Bow Shield T9 never reached out to me. I reached out to them and I said, man, I love your stuff. This is better than any, and lubricant. By the way, I had some on my boat, but you ticked me off and I forgot to give you some the other day, Caleb. So I got some. I got some for you. I know, Scott, you've been a convert, for that. So that was like a product that I loved,
Yeah, I'll be honest, I was a Corrosion X guy. And then you handed me that bottle of Bow Shield. I'd never even heard of the stuff. And one of my customers up there in New York, John, he swears by it and sprays it on everything. And I did it on the new motor on the skiff when I first got it. Sprayed it all down, did all the things that you can do with it. You can just spray your motor. And took the cover off my motor the other day, and now I'm 3 years in, something like that, and it still looks like brand new underneath there. Yeah, and there's none of that little corrosion here and there, and it just looks good.
So and I'll add my plug into it. For those of you that clean and maintain your boat, you're gonna love it. Hey, while we're giving plugs, and we're live on YouTube.
And for those of you who don't, it doesn't matter if I give him any.
I got young Mr. 44 sitting beside me right here.
I see him.
The boy finished the season with a 560 batting average, number 2 on the team, and a 1.0 ERA off the bump.
Not that you were keeping track.
No. Well, I didn't even do it. The team actually keeps track. I didn't know. I was unaware of all of this.
Yeah.
But he's been working hard. If you follow me on the page, you get to see a lot of his work. 44 is sitting here beside me. So if you're not on YouTube checking out the family homie stuff, come on over here. Catch us next week. Leave a comment. Let's hang out.
All right. What would Scott do? What would Caleb do? Let's get to it right now. You guys, I surprised you with that one, didn't I? I came out of left field. We're talking baseball. I came out of left field with that. What would Scott do? What would Caleb do? Well, I was looking at the forecast earlier, Scott. And so what are you thinking?
We're back to
Yeah.
Yeah, Saturday is not looking so hot, man.
Big cold fronts coming
through. Weekday challenged folks out there.
Don't think I
weekday folks
that comment either.
Yeah, the weekday folks got it made. Thursday's looking really good. It's really nice and light. And Friday's a little light north wind. Everything's looking good. And then Saturday, what the hell happened? 26 gusting to 28. Yeah, just nasty. 50 degrees, a little bit of rain. Man, you might want to go get your Christmas shopping done.
Man, I got
then
Saturday
save
at-
it for Sunday.
Saturday at noon,
Yeah.
27 gusting to 36.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yikes.
Do a little Christmas shopping, get that honeydew out of the way. And then Sunday's not looking too bad. It'll be cold. It'll be behind the front. This is not a northwest front, so we're not going to lose a whole bunch of water out of it. It's more northeast. So water's probably going to stay up a little bit. I'd go fish some drop-offs. Anything close to a drop-off, if the sun pops out, fish might come up there onto those flats a little bit, but they're not going to get too far away from that deeper water because when it gets nighttime, they're going to freeze their little butts off. So it's going to get cold. And long-term forecast, boys, it's looking cold. I mean, there's some wet precipitation coming, and that's going to chill our water off, and you big trout guys are going to enjoy that.
Well, if you're catching, if you catch any,
they're gonna put their stupid pants on, lots of layers of Sims and Afco and Grundens, and go out there and stand in the cold water and freeze and fish slow.
What are you thinking, Caleb?
Scott pretty well said it all, and I'm reading the comments. And Dean, I'd also like to thank your mama.
What is going on?
Dean said he'd like to thank his mama, and me too.
Dean and I have a running joke, and when we call each other, one of the first things it said is, "How's your mama?" There was an old comedian that used to do that. "How's your mama?"
Yeah.
Scott pretty well hit it on the head. If I had to fish, I don't see, and this is the problem with forecast. Mine shows like 15 to 25 for Saturday. I don't see I don't see the terrible stuff.
Which one are you looking at?
I'm looking at Windfinder for Matagorda.
Awful.
And at noon it shows me 20 to 25. If it's blowing that, there's some I would go to a cove that has the wind driving water into it, and I would fish it. I think I could actually do okay doing that. But Scott pretty well hit the nail on the head. A lot of people are off of work for the 21st after lunch looks pretty good. Actually, 21st all day long looks pretty good. And then early on the 22nd, that's probably what I would do to be off.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I almost said to be terrible. That's almost where I said, because I'm sitting here looking at this stuff. Yeah, to be awful. That's what I would do.
All right. And last thing, and this is self-serving for us, is if you want to go to scottandallphotography.com and get that little stocking stuffer, a hat, Bite Me podcast hat, Bite Me podcast buff. Stickers are always good. Stick those on your boat at scottandallphotography.com. The Airwaves podcast is popping and is going to get bigger. That's Caleb's deal. And of course, Caleb, allstateroofs.com. Help our guys out. If you like this podcast, and how can you not? I mean, it's a lot of fun to do this for you guys. Anything else from you guys?
Somebody asked, what would you do for Galveston? Can one of us go to that? Same thing. I mean, it's not going to be a whole lot of difference. I'm gonna find some place that's got to drop off, and if the sun pops out, I'm gonna fish up on the flat. If it's stays cloudy and cold, I'm gonna fish a little bit deeper water and be along that drop off somewhere. Maybe fish some little deeper reefs. You got more options there for deeper water. Maybe go bump along on a reef somewhere. Fish the edge of the ditch. Fish up diversionary canal, perhaps. Something along those lines. Something's got some deeper water and some mud on the bottom.
Yeah, City Life Angler, don't feel left out because he says something about drop-offs. He's talking about you because he's in Matagorda. I'm like, drop off? What drop off? We have no drop off. The whole damn day is 5 foot deep. So he's talking to you. He's not talking to me.
It goes from 3 feet to 3.5 feet.
Yeah. It takes half a mile to make this drop off over here.
Hey, look, you see that drop off? What drop off?
Yeah.
But there are into the ditch and stuff. So appreciate it, you guys. This is always a lot of fun. It is about that time of year. People can have time off. So we really appreciate you joining us. Really appreciate everybody partnering up with us. You guys catch up those fish. I'm liking this.
I would like to point out that there is no copyright infringement going on right now, YouTube.
That's exactly right.
So
At least none that I know of. I did purchase this. I have receipts. We'll talk to you next time. Catch them up.
The music stopped. Why the music stop?
Because the podcast is over. We're still live, though, if you
But
want
it's
to say
not
anything
over.
to our...
You need to purchase a longer song, John.
No, I did it just right. I did it. I
Did you
actually
get
did it 2 seconds.
Was this the Black Friday special?
I actually did it 2 seconds longer than the other outro, and this one won't get me sued.
This is terrible. This is the worst I've ever.
Look, I'm going to play it again for the people. For the people that are still listening on the YouTube channel, tell me you don't like this. This is not going to air on the podcast. This is just for us right now on YouTube.
I mean, it's not terrible. It reminds me, I'm out of Dr. Peppers I've been drinking.
And then here comes the big finish,
Which comes quick.
Hey,
There it
Caleb
is.
don't know
See?
this, but I'm working on an alcohol sponsor. So
oh yeah,
Bush Apple.
no.
he is. All right, man. YouTube is a great addition to the podcast, says Larry Higgins. I agree. Let's end this YouTube live so I can get to editing on the podcast. And appreciate
It is
everybody.
not, Franklin. That's crap. I made that music for Airwaves intros. Took me 4
You
hours.
did?
Yes.
See, I'm playing it again. I'm playing it on a loop now. I should probably stop that. Hold on a
How
second.
many buttons to push?
And we'll get out of here. There we
As
go.
long as you hit record.
All right,
everything's
everybody.
good.
Yeah, I think I hit record. Y'all enjoy.